And we're back on Fresh Waves. I don't like to start sentences with and, but that one actually works. We are back on Fresh Waves here at Whistle FM. I'm your host, Bren Masson, and joining us in the studio right now is Claudiu Popa. How are you doing, Claudiu?
So I'm doing well.
So you're doing well. Oh, there you go. You're smart.
How's that for an alternative
Well, you know what?
Sentence?
If we're going to be talking about kids going back to school, that's part of what they're going to be learning, you know. They're not allowed to say, I come down to the school today. No, you came down, Johnny. Let's have proper English. So we're going to talk proper English. No, we're not. Didn't you hate grammar when you were in school?
Oh, yeah. That's how I learned how to talk good.
And you talk so good.
I do. It's not my first language. That's why.
Yeah. You're real good at talking.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about cybersecurity for kids because I think parents really want to know what they should be doing and what they should be watching out for. You know, you hear a lot on the news these days, oh, I had no idea that my child was doing that. Well, get an idea. And should they be watching? How can they watch? Should they be spying on their kids while they're on their computer? You know, little cameras up in the ceiling, watching what the kids are doing online, making sure little Johnny is not going to websites that he shouldn't be going to and things like that. How are we handling cybersecurity in the home?
Not very well. So from our seminars, and we do ask kids various discrete questions, we find that parents still, in this day and age, consider the internet to be more of a babysitter than a learning tool, a collaborative learning tool. So it's not even at the point where you should be considering spying on them. You should just be passing by and saying, is there anything I can help you with? Or let me show you this neat app or this neat site. So kids have gotten it in their heads that parents don't really want to work with them on the computer. And that's a sad situation because kids have taken it upon themselves to learn and to discover things by themselves. So how are they going to do this? They're going to copy their friends. So their friends are on some addictive game or on some chat website that probably runs some code that you wouldn't necessarily want running on your computer because it uses tracking technology. So this morning, for example, I saw an article about the websites of MPPs and how almost 100% of them have tracking tools on them. So when you connect to an MPP's website, you're automatically being tracked, and there's behavioral information that goes to those sites. And in some cases, those MPPs don't even get the information. They don't even know that they're collecting that information, which counts as private data. So, of course, if you let your kids just surf willy-nilly, that's bound to happen. But my best recommendation is take the time to set aside a few minutes each day or perhaps a couple of hours a week and say, let's do something together on the computer. Whatever you want, but let's discover it together.
Okay. So you're not sort of sneaking on their computer and looking at the history of things that they've done?
You can do that, but you have to be careful not to erode their trust. I always make sure that my kids know that I have visibility into their search history, or I can even listen into what they've been talking to Google Home about, or Alexa, or whatever home talking thing you might have. But they need to know that you can do these things, not because it promotes behavioral change on their part, and they shouldn't be afraid of it. They should just know that this is a capability that they also have. So I'm for being open with them. I'm for teaching them how to control their own information. That's one way of controlling their own information. Obviously, if they go in there and delete all of their conversations with Alexa, that's going to look suspicious, and they won't do that. But yeah, be open with them and share as much as possible. Be collaborative. So you don't have to scare the bejesus out of them and tell them that they can get hacked by whoever, or recruited, or kidjacked. But do spend more time with them. The computer is not a toy. It can be a learning tool, and it should be considered a learning tool rather than a time waster, a tool for getting them addicted to yet another thing.
And a distraction. A big distraction. You know, they're going to get their homework done before they go to bed, but they've wasted 3 hours playing some sort of computer game that their buddies are all playing, and yeah, it gets to be quite the whirlwind, doesn't it? Or it can be.
Yeah, no, so you have to prioritize and sequence those activities. So you're not just getting stuck doing something for 3 hours and then spend 5 minutes doing homework in a terrible rush. Take your time.
I heard something really interesting, and of course you never know what news is real or not these days, but I heard that the top computer people in the world, you know, the Bill Gateses and these big computer guys, they don't let their kids just willy-nilly play on the computer. They teach them how to code. They want them to be the person who invents the software, not the person using the software. And I think that's a really interesting philosophy. I think coding should be taught in schools the way that typing used to be taught when people I know used to be in school.
They control access to computers because once kids are on a computer, they're at the mercy of whoever manages to put up a window or an ad or a website. So what I try to do with my kids is I try to explain to them that you're either a consumer or a creator. So you're either consuming websites at one particular point or playing games, you're consuming some sort of content, or you're creating content, or you're building something, or you're developing code, or you're writing a book, or a story, or an essay. So think about balancing those two things, because we can never just be building all the time. We're all a little bit of both, but don't let that balance sway too much on one side. Don't just be consuming. Think about a way that you can contribute. And that's why when we present these seminars, these community seminars, we encourage kids to not be afraid of the tools at their disposal, and always think about ways that these can contribute to others. How can you help others?
Interesting. We're going to take a little break and pay some bills here at the station. When we come back, we will continue our conversation and talk a little bit about passwords. You're listening to Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson, and we're talking with Claudiu Popa. We'll be right back.
Claudiu here with knowledgeflow.ca. If your family has been the victim of cybercrime, cyberbullying, or malicious privacy abuses, you're not alone. It's happening every day and sometimes carries tragic consequences, as we've seen in recent news. What's the solution? Don't internalize it. If it's an urgent issue, call the police immediately. If, however, you would like professional advice, you can confidentially email report@knowledgeflow.ca and get some ideas for dealing with social media, instant messaging, webcams, hacking, identity breaches, etc. Remember to visit knowledgeflow.ca on Facebook and potentially arrange a seminar for your community center, your school, or your Board of Education.
We're taking strides to make a difference, to show we care. Strides for Change.
In communities across this country, MAD Canada hosts Strides for Change, an annual 5K walkathon and wheelchair event. Help raise awareness to stop impaired driving and raise funds to support the victims of this violent crime. So join the fun. Together, we can make a change.
We're taking strides to make a difference. Strides for Change.
Visit stridesforchange.ca.
We're back on Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. We're speaking with Claudiu Popa about cybersecurity. But today we're focusing on cybersecurity for kids, because I think this is such a broad topic. If we started talking cybersecurity in general, we'd just be on it for days, maybe weeks.
Months?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So today we're just focusing on kids. So we've had the conversation before about seniors a couple months ago. If anyone wants to hear that, you can just go to my website at freshwaves.ca and look at the podcast. But we talked passwords for seniors. Let's talk passwords for kids. How do you come up with a password for your kid's computer or your kid's different activities that they're doing on the computer that, number one, you can remember and that they can remember as well?
That's a great question. So it's the exact same thing for kids, for adults, for older adults. They all are encouraged to choose a sentence, a phrase, a few words that they enjoy. You can use whatever capitalization you want, punctuation. some phrase that you like, perhaps a phrase that you've just come up with. It makes more sense to create something new than to pluck something out of a book that's likely to be in a hacker's dictionary already. But the point is, 8-character passwords are no longer acceptable. You need to pick something a little bit longer. So if you pick a sentence or a phrase, it's a lot easier both to remember and to type in. Because if you're struggling to type in some alphanumeric sequence
with punctuation and all the nonsense,
pressing shift or struggling with your phone, that's a lot more difficult, and it's more difficult to remember. But it's easier to just type a sentence. And as far as remembering them, you shouldn't have to remember your passwords. I don't. So you should use a password database. You can get a free password database online. You can use LastPass or KeePass or 1Password. You can use any number of these things, and it's ideal for older adults not because they forget, but because they have a fear of forgetting. Certainly I do. And I don't even try to remember them. I just put them all in my various password databases and make sure that they're encrypted and they're safe. And
what do you mean by encrypted?
Well, every password database that you'll find will encrypt, will scramble the data that's in it. So if anyone ever comes across it or steals a copy of it, they won't be able to get into it. Why? Because, again, you need to have a strong password and a long one. So your strongest password, and perhaps the only one you need to remember, is the one for your password database. There are different ways to protect it, and you can protect it even with an additional code that comes to your phone. So you type in your password, and then it says, we've texted a code to your phone. That's your second factor. And you put that in, and it gives you access. And that's great, because if someone ever steals your password, well, it's less likely that they'll also steal your phone and your phone's password or passcode, and so on. So you'll need those two elements, those two factors, your password and your PIN code, to get in. But the bottom line is, don't use a password on more than one site or on more than one account, which is what everyone does.
Oh, that's what everyone does.
And that's how it used to be. People used to do that, but it's no longer acceptable at all. Every single password, every single site has to have its own password, every single service. And by using a password database, it makes it super, super easy, because it comes up with a password for you. So you literally just say, new entry. I would like to create a new entry because I'm setting up a new Yahoo account. And it opens up a new entry, and it's already come up with a new password for you. It's put it into your clipboard, for example, on your computer, and you just paste it into the website. You don't even see it, in fact. And
does that work the same for your phone?
It works the same way for your phone, right? So you just paste it in there, and you're off to the races. And so in most cases, the password database will also put in your password when you want to log in again. So you never have to know your own password. It's a very convenient tool, and it sounds a lot harder than it is. So even though I feel like I explained it simply, I'm sure it sounds a little bit technical, but rest assured, it's super, super simple. And again, it's the whole point behind these companies that are making these password databases is to make them accessible to absolutely everyone with zero background in computers. Even if you don't know how to use a computer, you should be able to know how to use a password database, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense, but I do have to tell you that I used to have a BlackBerry. I swore by BlackBerry for years, as I see you putting yours underneath the table. Love my BlackBerry. And then I changed to a D-Tech, and the BlackBerry Keep, the password Keep there, which was supposed to be the best password protector of all time. And they said it would just go over flawlessly. Not only did it not go over to the new phone, but I lost it completely on my BlackBerry, and all of my passwords went with it. It was a nightmare, because I honestly didn't have, I lost a ton of stuff. I had to make new passwords for almost everything I had. Anyway.
Use one of the three that I mentioned.
Yes.
KeePass, LastPass, 1Password.
KeePass, LastPass, 1Password.
Right.
Okay, there's not one of those that you like better than the other?
I like KeePass better than the other, but that's because it runs on my computer and it runs on my phone. Mm-hmm. Not much runs on my BlackBerry.
No, not much.
In fact, I have 2 apps, of which one is a flashlight. So the other one being my password database. So
why do you use it?
I'm set. Well, because these are the only 2 apps I need. I need to be able to see in my closet early in the morning when I'm getting ready for the gym. So flashlight, very useful.
Yeah.
And I need to be able to have access to my passwords. So there's nothing else as far as I'm concerned. I don't need to know the weather. But if I do, I'll tune into Whistle.
Okay.
See what I did
Nice
there?
plug. That was very nice. And then if you need to know, if you want to kill time, I guess you never play games or anything on your phone?
I really have no time to kill, and it really sounds like a crime at this point. There's no time to kill.
Okay, well, people are waiting
valuable
for appointments, and you see people sitting and playing Solitaire, Spider, all these different games on their computer. And I actually have had people who are really, really, really bright people, very well educated, who get totally addicted to something like Candy Crush. Mm-hmm. And you see them, like, every spare moment they have, they're going back into Candy Crush and trying to get to the next level. And they're at level, 2,905. I'm at level 4 and I'm bored and I throw it away. But that's just me.
So there's a difference between being a consumer and a creator. Mm-hmm. So the reason I have a BlackBerry is because it has this nifty keyboard. And when I'm sitting there in line waiting or whatever I'm doing, I'll write part of my next article on it with this keyboard.
'Cause the keyboard's
that's why I
easier.
have a keyboard. I write a lot on my BlackBerry. I wrote most of my last book on it. So it's just a matter of accessing the data afterwards. It's not super friendly as far as pulling the data off the BlackBerry, but as far as allowing me to do something useful with my time, it certainly does.
Okay, well, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm. It's too late to buy one now because we've gone to the Android model. Mine is a BlackBerry OS, so this should boost sales of this phone that hasn't been made in 4 years. I'm looking for a new one in box if anyone has one.
You know what? There's certain things about a BlackBerry that I miss every single day, and one of them specifically is the Messenger, the way it used to work.
And your passwords.
My passwords. I miss
you
those.
You miss those passwords.
And my mind. But the Messenger and the things that BlackBerry did, they were years ahead of their time.
Yes.
And now things like WhatsApp, it's almost as good as BlackBerry Messenger used to be.
It was a social network. That was all here, and all the kids had it.
Yep.
It was a cool thing. Now try to tell a kid you have an ancient BlackBerry.
Yeah, they don't relate anymore. And BlackBerry, unfortunately, went the way of many inventions like Beta and all the rest of those things. Anyway, we did have a listener who said, who mentioned to me yesterday, why would you need, like, people just seem to get too caught up in passwords. Who cares if you don't have the greatest password on Facebook? Who cares if someone else looks at your Facebook page? But there's got to be a reason why you should have a good password, isn't there?
So it's true that you should be able to say, who cares if I don't have the best password, but only if you have a second factor to plug in. So if you have a poor password and it gets stolen, your account should still be safe because Facebook should be sending you a code to your phone saying, input this code in order to access your account. That means you should always enable two-factor authentication on any accounts.
Everything.
Yeah, any accounts that support it. Yeah.
Okay.
You need to protect your identity. So my second point to that effect is, if your account gets stolen, hijacked, or otherwise compromised, you need to be able to protect your identity. It's not about the images that you have in there. It doesn't mean that you have anything to hide. It has to do with the fact that it's a very useful thing to have, an identity. And a thief will use your identity and exploit it to gain the trust of your network, of your friends, of your contacts, and make them make a decision on the spot urgently. like the stranded traveler scams that we've seen. Hey, you know what? I'm writing to you from this verified, authorized, known address that you know so well. I'm writing you from here because I'm stuck in Bosnia and someone is demanding a lot of cash up front. I just need a quick $600 to get me through the day, and I'll pay you back, kind of thing. And a lot of people have paid those amounts because they are urgent, and urgency and humans don't do well together.
Don't make a rash decision because it'll turn into a rash. But anyway, okay, we're going to take a little break. You're listening to Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. We're speaking with Claudiu Popa, who is a cybersecurity expert, and we'll continue this conversation right after this quick break. Stay tuned.